Okay, guys, I hope you can see my slide. So I'm not sure exactly where it was lost. Was it during certification or was it in best practices? I'll just quickly touch the final thing that I spoke about certification and get into the best practices so that even if I have missed, you would get that idea. As said, the certification looks for the conformance to the API, the central registry, HTTPS. We look for positive functional flows. We also look for negative functional flows. We also look for security-related problems in your API, such as, for example, a consent API received for a user A, can we reuse it for a user B and obtain the data? Can we misuse some of these informations? Can we toggle around these values and see if the system is responding back and other stuffs? We kind of do all of such validations in a pretty automatic way to ensure that the API does the right thing. On audit, we also look for data retention, data protection. How are you protecting it? Backup and security around that, and your systems and your processes, and the procedures that you follow to maintain an implemented system. All together, look at from the time the data originates to the time the data goes out of the particular system layer. We look for everything. Is it in line with the security guidelines that we are asking it to be? Right, that is being validated in every single setup that is being in there in place. Now, jumping on to the best practices. In no way I'm telling that this is the final best practices, but I would like to iterate the fact that these are some of the best things that you could follow to ensure your data and your systems to be trusted more than ever. Follow CIS controls. You can search for that particular keyword in Google. You'll find tons of materials around it. There's a very nicely defined Excel sheet for you to actually look at and follow. It's very simple questionnaires asking you specific information, and you could simply mark it yes or no. That would give you a clear idea of what level of security that you need to put into your systems. Okay, if possible, design your storage level encryption using keys derived from the end user. That's a very unique solution. I've used this design for almost a decade now, and it extremely works well in a privacy kind of a scenario, wherein the key that you use to encrypt a particular record of a user is in fact derived from the user attribute himself. So until the user logs in, you can't open up the data. That kind of a design solves the problem of a backend system trying to open the data without the user's knowledge. So without a user's knowledge, you can never open that system. When I say user's knowledge, user has to give a specific key or an entity for it to be opened, and only then the particular record is openable, and it cannot be opened until he gives that value. So there are tons of ways in which you can design it. You can search for zero knowledge storage. I have designed it for one more open source software. You should be able to see that design in there, and you could adapt it. If you need more information, I have my personal ID out there. You could drop me a mail and I could help you out with that. The encryption algorithm, we're looking at 256 bits or greater. We're looking at AES kind of an encryption at a symmetric level. Public key and other things, you already know what we prefer and how we have defined it there. But at a cryptography level, at a basic data level, we're looking at an AES 256, nothing less. Higher is okay, we don't mind. Storage of keys, we're expecting the keys to be at a level 3 compliant device, and I ensure that you follow all the best practices to keep the keys in a very, very safe place. Remember, as I said, compromising key in one system could put the ecosystem in trouble, and we don't want that to happen. Quite a lot of anonymization which we spoke about. There are some places we have already told about things like data masking and other stuff. So we have already explained tokenization, data masking, and partial masking and other things. In anonymization, there are two mechanisms that you can use if you're a data side of the story. If you belong to the data side of this ecosystem, one is you can generalize. other owners you can suppress. So generalize is basically, for example, if you have a huge records of information and you want to tell people between 20 to 25 predominantly takes a loan of this value, and these people pay they repay with repayment capability seems to be at this percentage and all of other things. You are absolutely able to tell that. That's generalized. You can even go to a district level and tell that at a district level this is how it is, which means that giving a loan in that district at a higher level is predominantly good. You could do all of that with a generalization kind of a scenario. Suppression is a very unique mechanism wherein if you have a full record set and if you could take the sensitive columns in that record set and simply mark them as stars. Okay, I'm saying star just as a way of anonymous. You could mark it as a star or anything for that sense, which is no meaning, which means between record A and record B, that particular attribute remains same, and there is no way for somebody to derive it. Okay, and quite a lot of times when I work with anonymization, people look at K anonymity, but my view is K anonymity, you tend to lose a lot of sites. You tend to, at a larger scale of data like what we have today here in this kind of an ecosystem, you may end up with a problem. Look for T closeness principles, remove outliers in your data. You simply remove it out. That would be the better way of getting the T closeness to the expectation that you want. Okay, those are some of the guiding principles. While based on what kind of data you deal with, what are you trying to achieve, the anonymization extremely varies. So it's very difficult for me to give in one session full details about how we could actually do this entire work together. But these are very interesting property for you to anchor around and start looking at things in place. Okay, so with this, I'm kind of ending my session. I think most of you already know my mail IDs and other stuffs. You also know my GitHub ID. It is G Sasikumar. I also have the forward secrecy code out there for you guys to use it. I have my official ID as well here. You're more than welcome to communicate to me back with any relevant things that you need. Okay, and thank you. Appreciate for all your time, guys.
Thank you very much, Sasi, for that great talk. Guys, we're really lucky to have Sasi, help us so much in this ecosystem. So thank you for your talk once again, and thank you, audience, for listening and appreciating it. We can take maybe 5-6 minutes worth of questions before we start the next presentation. So, Sasi, there's some questions that come in for you. There's 3 questions, 2 questions basically. Could you see them on the right over there?
Yeah, I can see them on the right. So three questions, right? What is the flow of data? Say FIU shall execute a consent artifact, then it would connect EAA, which would in turn approach FIP. Data shall be released using a cryptographic keys, which would then reach the FIU, then encrypt the use of data. So I don't know if there is a question or you're asking me is that correct? It does look correct for a specific flow. I don't know which flow we are speaking about, but there is a flow which is in line with what you are listed there, and you're absolutely right. The cryptography is initialized between the party which is sharing the data and the party which is receiving the data, and in between the account aggregator remains with no data at all. What's the encryption used for FI data? So data at the data level, our encryption is an AES 256 bit. Majority of the work that we have done is to exchange the keys between these 2 layers and how safely we can get it there. And AES GCM is the cryptographic algorithm explicitly that we have used. So you can consider as AES 256 GCM as the key. Okay, next set, what tech stack for certification testing that will be used for the scans? So right now, the tech stack that is there in the certification, it's a Python and Node based servers, plus some of the security scanning tools together is what is used for it. So it is a Node.js plus Python. and some security tools combined is what is being used for the certification, to build the certification kit itself and the testing itself. But otherwise, it's all REST compliant. So a lot of mark servers and other things are built in to test a specific entity on the flow together. Very interesting one. I would recommend if you could take a look. You'll see that. Development, key exchange, and code details. All things will be managed at FIU and FIP side, right? As of A, we are on data byte. Yeah, you're right. We expect the FIPs and the FIUs to be extremely bounded by the key exchange, because the data is transferred between them. A is a very consent side, and you have to still look at the consent for that nature. And definitely you need to validate the token. You need to validate your incoming data, and the signatures are absolutely right for you to actually take the data and forward it back. Right, because you are like a mediator right in between both these entities, and please look for the signatures and ensure they are valid data before you forward. That way, any miscellaneous data kind of is trapped right in your place rather than going between these entities. All participants will be using the same monotogamy variant of 255.119, correct? Also, as far as I know, I believe it is susceptible to side channel attacks. Okay. Almost all cryptographic algorithms are vulnerable for cryptanalysis and side channel attacks. There is no doubt about it. We are not in no way we are telling that it will be safer. But out of what we have, these are the best out of the solution. So let's just to walk you through. Curve 25009 is an algorithm which doesn't result in a timing related side channel attack. So you can't based on a time, you can't derive things in place and try to find out anything wrong with it. But obviously, cryptanalysis is something that you could definitely find out. Right, cryptanalysis is a lot more hectic task, and no way we are telling it's not possible. Yes, it is possible. It's complicated, but if you look at the data algorithm that we are using, we are with AES 256 CTR GCM. There is no theoretically or more than theory. There is no practical evidence that exists today on a CTR wherein you could break through the system. And if you look at our designs, places where there are some side channel attacks that are possible, you would see nuns being predominantly used as well, along with the key exchange and other things. And the reason why we use those nuns and the randomness and other stuffs is to protect against some of those side channel attacks and the data related attacks in place. Could a detailed document with the certification process and guidelines be shared and published? What would be the cost of the process? I think absolutely we could do that. I think that's a very important thing. We should ideally do that. We will definitely get that done for sure. I think Nickel, right? Okay. You are trying to make a point around security aspects of user consent, and in middle we lost your stream. Can you recollect the thoughts? Good question. Now, where do I see that? By any chance, if I know the slide numbers, I could get over with it. But anyway, I could. So consent. Consent is a very important part in this solution, right? We try to use the consent as a way to build the trust for the end residents who actually use this digital site. And we are also trying, we ourselves at a personal level are going to be users of this system. Our family members, our people whom we know are going to be users of this system. We don't want the system to take us for granted. We want to be clear when and how our particular data being used. So what we have done with the consent is a very unique framework in line with the MATI's consent framework, electronic consent framework. An account aggregator acts as a mediator in this sense, which essentially means I, as a data principal, and the account aggregator is the person who centrally manages and maintains my authorization of sharing data to whom and when and how. And this consent is a very important part to make sure that the consent is validated by against every single transaction. That is something that we test in the certification as well. Is the consent validated in every single transaction? Even though we give a consent ID as part of some of the transaction, it is expected that you would validate the consent and make sure that it is not crossing the expiry date. The dates mentioned in is absolutely true, and you are still within the limits of what the consent is provided by the end user. And until a consent is provided, no data is moved at any point in time and in any form and any way. Is how we are looking at it. And if you want to be very, very close to the consent and consent related privacy designs, I was speaking about a system called a zero knowledge storage, wherein you kind of encrypt each record of a user along with a certain identity that the user is going to provide you with. And that way, as a backend administrators or backend users, nobody would know the actual data. And in order to know the actual data, they need to give you that particular key that the user has to provide. Maybe it is a login username from the user, or login username and a password by the user, or it's an PAN card number or something that the user provides as a form of entering into your system, and only then that record can be unlocked. Enhances this mechanism of the consent and the consent driven and the privacy side of the story. It's a very, very interesting way of applying cryptography on your data that could help you with the consent as well. I believe this was the thought that I had in mind. I'm assuming that that's what I was trying to convey, and probably somewhere in that the connection was lost.
Awesome. Thank you. Everybody, just to remind you that in the Hack Bible, the fourth resource number 4 in the Hack Bible, is actually a detailed overview of all the security workflows in the account aggregator framework. So it covers, for example, who the FIU chooses the parameters for the curve, how those parameters are sent across, how a secret key is generated, public key is exchanged, nonce is generated. All of that is covered in that document. So make sure you do read that. And then if you have further questions, Sasi was kind enough to share his email ID, which I've also put into the chat. So if you do have questions after that, then you can reach out. Obviously, please be mindful of his time and bandwidth. And Sasi, thank you very much once again for this. It's been really useful. We hope to show you our final projects at the end of the hackathon, and hopefully they pass your security smell test.
Sure, everyone. Thank you. Thanks, guys, and all the best for all your work.
Amazing. So, guys, we'll be back in about 5 minutes with our next presentation, which is an insurance tech masterclass by Anand Datta of Nexus Venture Partners. So, if you guys have around 5-7 minutes, just hang out at the social lounge table, and we'll see you soon. Thanks again, Sasi.